and the artist Piero della Francesca, to name but three, they haven't forgotten their lone musical genius. Indeed, in the late 19th century, in a burst of civic pride, they rediscovered him in a big way. Alas, much of the 19th century Guidoniana doesn't bear much historical scrutiny. This house, for example, proclaims proudly that Guido was born and worked here. One of the few things about his life that scholars can now say for certain is that neither statement is in fact true. One thing we can be sure of is that Guido came here, because this ruin of foundations is all that's left of the cathedral he worked in the 1020s. They built another cathedral a century later on the opposite hill. This building was demolished in the 16th century by Cosimo de' Medici to show the people of Arezzo how jolly macho he was. It was in this building that Guido set up a choir school, soon to become famous throughout Italy. Broadly speaking, his methods are still in use today. Guido's choristers, who sang here in this very building every day, were the first people ever to read music at sight from the page. That someone could sing a tune they'd never heard before simply by looking at squiggles and dots on paper was considered one of the great marvels of the time. Guido wrote two medieval blockbusters on the teaching of singing. The most influential, Micrologus, he wrote here in Arezzo. In them, he demonstrated his new lined method of notation that made the reading of notes utterly simple and clear. His biggest idea was the washing line principle. He drew one straight red horizontal line, like that. And he called this F. He said this would always represent the note F. So he put an F at the front of it like that. Now, nowadays, we'd call that a clef, French word for key, and Guido invented it. So, a blob on the line meant sing the note F, La. And a blob above the line meant sing the next note up, La, G. And a blob below the line meant sing the note below, E, La. Now, I know this seems fantastically simple to us, but then so does the wheel, and it took mankind a long time to figure that out. Eventually, he added another line in fetching yellow above it, which represented the note C, and a third line between the two, which represented the note A. And the spaces between them were G and B. So you had F, G, A, B, C. And here are those lines copied out in a copy of his book, Micrologus. And all you had to do was follow the blobs on the washing line, grazie Roberto, and you could read the notes one after another, easy as pie. La da dee la 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 dee 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 dee. Written notation was the theory, and a darn good one too, but Guido as a singing teacher wanted to help his choristers in practice. He wanted his pupils to be able to hear in their heads the relative pitch of notes, to develop an instinct for how high or low a given note, A, B, D, G, would be. You see, to sing a tune properly, you have to be able to recognize instantly the distance between two notes. For example, when we sing, "Should all acquaintance be forgot," that first leap, "should all," we know is 4 notes, not 5, "should all," or for that matter, 7, "should all." Now those leaps are called intervals, and Guido had a novel way of remembering them. Here's a clue.
Do, a deer, a female deer, ray, a drop of golden sun. Me, a name I call myself, far a long, long way to run.
It was Guido who invented the do-re-mi singing scale we all so enjoyed in The Sound of Music. It's still in use today as a means of teaching children to sing, just as it was nearly 1,000 years ago when Guido first came up with it.
A deer, a female deer, ray, a drop of golden sun.
To pick up some more clues about this remarkable, elusive figure and to see his do-re-mi singing scale in action, I visited the small hillside village of Talla, 30 kilometers from Arezzo, where, legend has it, Guido was born. A veritable Guido shrine has been lovingly created, high above the town.
Thank you. Grazie. Piacere.
The vice-mayor, the curator of the museum, the policeman and the town clerk took me up to see their exquisite Guido museum. Talla may not have much scholastic hard evidence for its claim on Guido, but its welcome for the Guido tourist is second to none. Gosh, this is the museum?
Yes, welcome to our little museum.
Thank you. Oh, what's this display here? The museum, though small, isn't short of state-of-the-art lighting wizardry.
In the Middle Age, violin,
Yeah.
you have the guitar, you have the...
Yeah, and the tambourine?
The tambourine.
All
yes,
the parts of the
tambourine,
orchestra.
Yes, of course.
Aha! And here is Guido's singing system in handy kit form against the wall. Like Maria in The Sound of Music, Guido taught his choristers a little ditty that he'd made up. His song, Ut queant laxis, wasn't quite as catchy as hers, and his choristers didn't wear lederhosen either. But never mind, the idea was the same. Now, the names ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la are the first syllables of each of the Latin phrases of this memorable hymn. Guido's system was actually called ut-re-mi, not do-re-mi, by the way. But that's another story. I think you'll agree that the phrase ut, a deer, a female deer, doesn't have quite the same ring to it. Now, each of the phrases begins with a different note, and the notes are arranged in a neat ladder from bottom to top, low to high. Ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la, and tea, a drink with jam and bread, was added later, in case you're wondering. If I press this handy knob here, a group of monks, forever trapped behind this wall, will sing the whole phrase in Latin. In order to help his singers with the new ut-re-mi system, he even devised a trick whereby each of the notches on the fingers of your hand represented a different note of the scale. It was called the Guidonian hand, a bit like having a pocket calculator with you at all times. In fact, Guido didn't know which of his three techniques, lines notation, ut-re-mi, or the curious finger device, would be the most useful. But gradually, all over Christian Europe, it was his four-lined stave that became universally adopted. By the 12th century, all